I'm Chris,
And I'm Kylie. And this is Redefining Resilience,
where we explore what it means to build a resilient lifestyle
so you can thrive in any and every situation. All right, we're back, and we're talking about planning today.
I am pumped. We planned a whole lot for this one.
Okay, we actually did. It was just last minute.
Planning's still planning.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter when you get it done, just that you get it done. So you go in with a little bit more intentionality.
I agree.
So let's talk about the 80-20 rule.
Do you want to talk about how you got to the 80-20 rule?
Well, it's Pareto's Law, which I learned, I think, in math class like a gazillion years ago.
A gazillion years? That's a lot of years.
Yeah, and essentially, most things in life work with the 80-20 rule. Let's take sales, for example. If you take a typical sales team, 20% of the sales force produces 80% of the revenue.
Yeah. That's like driving down the road and looking at the construction workers. You got 20% of the people working.
80% are on break.
Yeah, leaning on a shovel. Yeah.
No. So I think about the 80-20 rule when it comes to planning. 80% of what we encounter on a daily basis is plannable and preventable and predictable. 20% is the unknown. We can't anticipate it. We can't plan it. Mother Nature, acts of God, things like that, we just don't know are coming.
No, and that tends to be why they're the loudest, because those are the things we have no control over, meaning they're the scariest. They tend to occupy a lot of our brain space because we're doing what our brain has been built to do for, millions of years, and it's to prevent or plan for the disasters, the 20%, the tornadoes that are going to come through and rip apart the village. But we don't necessarily live like that anymore.
Yeah. And we've talked about this before, but we have an ancient brain living in a modern world.
Yeah.
Meaning, as Chris mentioned, our brains are hardwired to protect us for survival. Well, we're not at a ton of risk on a daily basis with all the modern conveniences and technology that we have. Survival is not really everyone's top concern. Most of our basic needs have been met. And from that point, our main priority is thriving, right? So we're not in a survival type situation where we're living off the land, hunting our food, building our homes out of whatever we can find in nature. We've got some very refined processes and resources available to us. So now we can think a little bit smarter and get ahead and start planning things and not let everything be a survival mindset where we're just trying to get by.
Well, it's interesting too, because that survival mindset tends to bleed into the busy, not productive realm. I want to be busy trying to survive and make things happen, but I'm not really all that productive. So they kind of go hand in hand. But as far as the 80-20 rule goes, I think it's probably one of the most productive practices for understanding your power as a human, your power over your environment, and your outcomes. So a lot of times we try to change the outcome without changing the pattern. It's like a lot of the stuff in the fitness industry. Take this pill, and the next line is always, and don't change anything about your lifestyle. Well, it's not changing the pattern. You're actually just adding another stimulus, and it's probably not going to give you the outcome you want, or you don't even know what the outcome is going to be. So with the 80-20 rule, it's awesome because you can then see your patterns, and you can predict your outcome. When you start controlling that 80%, the 20% becomes a lot less noisy.
Yeah.
The problem is when we don't control the 80 and we focus on the 20, when something does happen, like your car wreck, then it's an absolute fucking disaster. Like shit just starts falling apart because the house isn't clean, because the scheduling wasn't done in advance, because our VA had no idea what was going on, or like your chiropractor didn't understand anything that was happening and you couldn't reach out. Like those things, even charging your phone before you left, those were preventable, plannable things that stopped an issue from becoming catastrophic.
Right. Well, and it comes down to controlled versus uncontrolled variables, right? The 80% represents controlled variables. These are the things that you know are coming. So let's just master the shit out of those 80%.
Yeah. Let's get really good at the basics.
Yeah. And then the 20%, it's why you see like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, they mastered the fundamentals. 80% of what they did was just get really fucking good at the basics. And then 20% is, okay, let's get creative. Let's, rely on our in the moment intuition to navigate those game time decisions. Then we don't really have to do too much thinking on an ongoing basis. If we have to use critical thinking skills all day long, we are absolutely exhausted. If 80% of my day is plannable, predictable, and I'm just executing and following the plan, I don't really have to think all that hard.
No, because they've become subconscious actions.
Yeah, you're kind of like on autopilot.
Yeah. And it sounds crazy, but like think about dribbling a basketball, right? I suck at dribbling a basketball because I don't do it. It's not part of my day. But if I wanted to be great at it, all I would do is dribble the fucking basketball all the time. I would spend all of my effort in a plannable window to become really, really good at that thing. And then I can add in the runs and the directional changes and the shots and everything else that I need to do. But without the basic fundamentals of dribbling the basketball, I'm going to be terrible at basketball. Absolutely awful. But that's the same thing with everything in life. If you want to be really, really good at your business, like we do with our Odyssey Resilience, if we want to be great at that, it's going to be really hard to put all of our energy and focus into the business if we have a messy house. If our cars are destroyed, if things aren't planned and aren't taken care of, if the basics aren't taken care of, because it'll occupy our brain space while we're trying to do the great thing that we're doing over here, our business.
Yeah. And for example, if you've got this big project that you need to get done, but your house is a mess, you just lost, your air conditioning and it's summer and you have to worry about replacing your air conditioning system. You have a kid sick at home. Like all these things just popped up. Do you really think you're going to be in the headspace to be able to put your time and attention into a creative initiative like handling a project? Probably not.
I think that's a great segue into reactive versus proactive.
Yeah, I mean, we can take two different approaches, right? We can either be reactive or we can be proactive in our approach to how we handle life. And I think this really comes down to, do you want to be really great at stress management or do you want to be really great at stress prevention?
It's true. Yeah.
If you're constantly reacting to the stressors that come at you, you better be really fucking good at managing the stress that you're creating.
Well, then you have to ask yourself, do you want to live with stress like that all the time? I mean,
I don't.
We don't die from communicable diseases anymore like we used to. We die from stress-related diseases. So you literally have to ask yourself, is it okay that I die from the most common factor in the free world and the globe right now? When it's your ability, you have the ability and it's your choice to be like that?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of silly if you frame it like that. But that's literally the question we're asking ourselves. So when we talk about reactive and proactive, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
I mean, you think about being reactive, it's the person on your team that doesn't ever have a plan when they come into work, they're just responding to whatever pops up. It could be whatever pops up in their inbox, on their Slack or their Teams Messenger. It could be whatever the boss says you need to be doing that day. Or it could be, that one outstanding task that so-and-so followed up with me on still isn't done. I guess I'll work on that now. I mean, I have clients that literally don't have a plan when they go in to work that day, that week. It's just, whatever pops up.
I mean, and that's okay if you're working on an assembly line and that's your job. Like, you don't really have to plan for that. But I'd even argue with that job, there's a shit ton of planning you can do to make that job better.
Yeah, you think about what's going to optimize my chances for having a really productive day. Well, it could be that I go in and I tackle my emails. So I see, what does everybody need from me? What have I not responded to that I need to address? Now I'll add that to my queue of tasks that I need to tackle for that day, and I'll group them based on similar tasks so that I can prevent some task switching throughout the day. I mean, that would be a strategic way to approach your day versus, I'll just see, what's on my desk waiting for me. That is going to create a lot of anxiety. You actually have far less anxiety when you wake up each morning and you know what's on your plate for the day.
Well, you can plan. And planning removes limbic system activity because you understand what you're stepping into. I mean, the reason why the first date or the first day on the job or driving a car for the first time, all those are so overwhelming and they burn images into your brain is because it's brand new. You don't know what to expect. You have thoughts around it. You have ideas that it might turn out one way or another. But until you're actually doing it, it's a little overwhelming. It is intense. But planning allows you to remove the intensity, some of it. Planning allows you to look at your day and go, okay, before noon, I want to accomplish this. So you get a little dopamine kick. You feel good about yourself. And you understand that you have control over your environment. A lot of the reason anxiety happens is because of lack of control. When you don't have the 80% in control, there's a lot of anxiety behind even something simple like doing the dishes or laundry. Those things should never produce anxiety that's crippling. But I know hundreds of people that is like one of the biggest catalysts for the anxiety level. And it is crippling.
My favorite indicator that we are not in control of our calendar is when somebody says, I just don't have time. I just don't have time is bullshit. It really means I'm not prioritizing that right now. So I want you to think really hard about the last time you said, I just don't have time. And I'm guilty of this too. There will be weeks where I just don't have time to get a workout in. No, it's because I've packed my calendar and the last thing I've prioritized is my gym time. And so you have two choices. You can be okay with that, in which case, don't say I don't have time. It's I didn't prioritize that this week because of my travel schedule. Which I'm totally fine with that. If there's, this week, for example, I have one yoga class scheduled, and I know that's the only workout I'm going to get in because we just got back from Montana and we leave on Thursday for Denver. So I have about a 3-day window to squeeze in workouts. And I just did a 20-mile hike on Saturday, which kicked my ass. So my body's hurting. I'm okay taking a few days off. I'm not making excuses. I'm not saying, I just don't have time to work out this week. I'm consciously making the decision to prioritize one workout this week. That's okay. I'm okay with that. But if you're not okay with how you're spending your time or how you're prioritizing your health or your fitness goals or time with family, you can't tell your kids, oh, I just don't have time to hang out with you because I'm so busy at work. They don't understand that. What they understand is dad's not there, mom's not there.
Well, and you have to look at it too, like at the end of the day, what are you making the most important thing in your life? What's holding the trophy at the end of the line here? Is it being the best lawyer you can be? Is it being the best doctor you can be? Is it being the fittest person you can be? A best husband, best dog owner? Whatever that thing is, if it takes you, like it took me, a couple months of journaling and introspection to figure out what was actually holding the trophy at the end, you're making those decisions consciously or unconsciously to prioritize those things. So if you, quote unquote, don't have time because you're working so hard, work's holding the trophy, bud. Work's holding the trophy over everything. And once you understand that, the reason you're saying you don't have time because you're prioritizing work over everything, you can start to realize, maybe I should reorganize some priorities here. Maybe I should spend time with my children more. Maybe I should spend more time on my fitness. But it all comes down to you prioritizing said thing. It's not that you don't have time. I know guys that work 80 hours a week in sawmills and steel mills that are still professional powerlifters. That's top end of the game. So they have the time and you have the time. It's just whether or not you want it. And it kind of sounds harsh, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to our 80-20 rule anyways. Are you going to prioritize those things or are you not?
And this is not to guilt anyone about how they prioritize their schedule, because I was that person. I was not working out because I was prioritizing work so much. And above all else, I was traveling every single week. I was letting that be my reason for why I didn't have time to work out. And what it ended up producing was a body I wasn't happy with. And now I have to prioritize my health and my fitness in order to undo the habits that I created during that busy time of life where I was a little bit out of balance. And before you know it, your health can slip out of your hands. It's really interesting when you take a step back and you think, because health is not really anyone's main purpose here on this planet. It's very few. Mm-hmm. Chris, you're probably one of the exceptions to this rule because you are a professional athlete that prioritizes your health and fitness because it's part of your career.
Yeah.
So you're a little bit of the anomaly in this scenario, but for the rest of us that aren't aspiring professional athletes, our health is just something that has to be maintained in the background while we are prioritizing our careers and our family and travel and whatever else we want to achieve in life, right? Like I don't feel like my purpose on this planet is to be a professional athlete. There was a point in my life where I was really into CrossFit and I'm like, I'm going to be a professional CrossFitter. I was in the shower and I distinctly remember this conversation with myself and I was like, I could do this. I mean, these professional athletes have to start somewhere. I'm just at the beginning. I could do this. I was like, do I really want to? Like I see what they have to do from a nutrition standpoint, from an exercise standpoint. It is rigorous. And do I really want to do? No, I don't want to do that. That's not my purpose. My purpose here is to impact as many lives as I can. And so in order to do that, I have to have a healthy body that can carry me the distance in life. So for me, my purpose is not to be the fittest person in the room or, you know, be a bodybuilder, be a fitness competitor. Like none of those are my goals. My goal is just to enjoy fitness, enjoy my workouts, enjoy having a healthy vessel that's going to be able to help me do what I want to do with my life, which is impact lives, right? So if you think about it, you have to tie that back to your vision, because unless you're like Chris and you want to be a professional athlete, health is not your vision. But it can quickly get in the way of your vision if we don't prioritize it. And we may be spending a little bit of time on this health component right now, but it's probably the one that we see pop up most often with our clients and our friends and our family. I mean, I was at a family gathering about a year ago, and I realized that 6 out of the 12 people that were there had cancer, had or have cancer in my family. That's like 50% of my family at that gathering have had an encounter with cancer.
Yeah.
So this is becoming a pretty serious problem for our population.
What's really interesting too, because I'm almost 100% with the people that I know. Somebody in their family has had or died or is currently dealing with cancer. Health is not something that we can muck around with for very long and not see the negative outcome of not taking care of ourselves.
Well, and it directly impacts our ability to plan and prioritize. So it's very much correlated with what we're talking about, which is planning, right? If we don't take care of our body, it affects our brain health. If our brain health is not high, we can't do our best thinking. We can't critically think about planning and prioritizing our day. We just won't be able to access that part of our brain that will allow us to say, okay, how can I best manage my time this week?
Well, working out and taking care of yourself is literally problem solving. Like when we're lifting, I'm trying to lift a weight, I'm solving a puzzle as I'm doing that. I'm putting pieces together in my system in order to create an outcome of getting the weight from point A to point B. We're literally growing our brain as we work out. It's 100% truth to this statement. Our brain grows due to physical activity. Our fucking brain grows due to physical activity. Physical activity will change the makeup of your noggin and your ability to make better decisions faster and fuller, meaning the whole outcome, the whole process, the whole shebang, quicker. You can do this better because of physical activity. So physical activity is a part of my life. It's a part of my job. It's a part of my vision. But I think it needs to be a part of everybody's because it is the thing that is getting you there. You would never step onto a boat to cross the ocean that was falling apart, no matter how great the vision is. No matter how much the pilot wants to get across the ocean to the big old sack of gold on the other side. It doesn't fucking matter. What matters is how well that boat is put together, because that's what gets you there. You can want it all day long, but that thing's going to fall apart 3/4 of the way or whatever during that journey. Don't put yourself in a shitty boat.
Ooh, I just got goosies. That was so good. Such a good analogy. It's so true. It's so true.
And the hardest part about this, I think, is there's nobody else to blame in that scenario. This is why health is the last thing for people to jump onto and to attach themselves to, because they don't have anybody to blame. You can't look at yourself in the mirror and say, it's my wife's fault. It's my husband's fault. It's my children's fault. It's your fault. And it's not a blame game here, but it is, you have to prioritize it. And if you prioritize it, other things change.
I hear from a lot of clients, and it's a good point, because I hear from a lot of clients, oh, well, my husband gets in his workouts 5 times a week, but I can't because I have to do X, Y, and Z with the kids. No, your husband has prioritized, or your wife, whoever it is in the relationship, someone has prioritized those workouts and isn't willing to negotiate. They're non-negotiables for them. And good for them because it's making them a better husband, a better father, a better, a wife, a better mother. It is so important for us. And, this is with anything. It's not just the health goals. It's however you spend your time is going to produce the results you're going to see. And a lot of times we see people who are so busy building their careers that their kids don't necessarily feel supported at home, or their spouse doesn't feel supported by them at home, or they're building all of this wealth, but they have no one to spend it on. They don't have anyone to go on trips with them and vacation with them. So we have to think about like how we do one thing is how we do everything in life. So if you're awesome at work, that's great. There's a trade-off to that. Where are you compromising in order to be great at work? And we're not saying don't be great at work, because we pride ourselves in caring a whole lot about our work, but we know that that's just a fraction of who we are as people, and we have to prioritize the other things that make us great at work.
And we're not saying drop everything and become a health and fitness enthusiast. Like, the health and fitness world is super convoluted, and it's super hard to make money in it because there's just so many people doing it. What I want you to focus on is your 1% changes. I want you to look at your life and say, how can I be more planned in my eating habits? How can I be more planned and more dedicated and more intentional with my workouts, with walking? I don't care if it's walking 30 minutes a day. What I want people to understand is action is a pattern changer. So you have to change your patterns to change your outcome. So if you want to change the way you look, change the way you feel, you feel like you might have some brain fog and you want a better operating problem-solving system in your head, start taking care of the system that's carrying your brain. Those things are just small 1% changes we can make to equal 365% changes every year. I don't think that Kylie, myself, or any of our coaches will ever tell you you need to change everything right at once. In fact, I know they won't. What we need to do is understand that planning is just setting out goals in front of ourselves for the day, the week, the month, the year, and just taking a step towards those goals. You're going to introduce failure. You're going to introduce missteps, miscalculations. All of the variables are going to be changing. But if you can plan and you can take care of the 80%, you can wake up and make your bed. You can wake up and have the coffee in the morning. Give yourself like we do, the hour before we do anything. Those things change your patterns. And patterns change your outcome.
Well, and just to flip the script a little bit, let's pretend like your health and your fitness is on a great path, but you're just not super passionate about work. You have to go back to that vision. That vision is your North Star. It's going to tell you what kind of life you want to create. And if you look at your future self, if you take a look at the patterns and the habits that you have today and fast forward 5 years, 10 years, where are you going to be? If you're not quite sure what that's going to look like, it's a good indicator that we need to go back and revisit your vision. You might need to craft your vision. You might need to just spend some time thinking about where you want to be a few years out from now. And I think the older we get, the easier it is to do because we've had a little bit more life under our belts. I remember in my 20s and somebody asked, like, what's your 5-year goal? And I'm like, I don't even have a 1-year goal. Make more money was a typical answer that I would give. And I would say, I don't know what that looks like, but I just know that I want to make more money. Okay, why? Like, what was I trying to create? And I look at my previous self and I think about the habits I had at that time were very much a reflection of me wanting to make more money. I was very hyper-focused on work, but I didn't understand what the other factors were that were going to contribute to either my success or my failure in that vision. And also, our needs change over time. it became very clear to me that what I really wanted out of life was a spouse. I wanted a husband. I wanted somebody I could go on trips with and experience life together. And so the making more money really became far less important than having a spouse. Like, that really was my main focus and my main priority. And so I did the things that I thought were going to help me get there faster. I started working out. I started eating right. I started prioritizing my meal prep and doing the things that I knew were going to make me look my best, because I really wanted to attract the right spouse. I think I did pretty good.
I think planning tends to be really easy when it comes to business, really easy when it comes to taking your kids places and the things outside of ourselves. But we got to understand that if we don't plan for success internally with our system, the thing that's making the rules and the decisions, we're starting off with crutches. We're going to move very slow. There's no reason we can't take that 80-20 rule and become very granular with it. My favorite part about the 80-20 rule is the small things like do the laundry, make your bed, because those things compound. We don't realize it until we take care of them over a long period of time, 6 months, I think is a minimum, that they actually affect our ability to make decisions. We carry everything in our life in our head all the time, the things we need to get done. That's why planning is so vital, because then we can set ourselves up for success and understand that, yes, this might be a setback, but it's actually an uncontrolled variable, and I'm really doing good because I'm in control of that 80%. And I only have one thing on the uncontrolled variable section that's affecting me right now. So we have a vision worksheet that I think is pretty cool, because it shows you how you're planning ahead. And one of the things on the front page of our vision worksheet is base camp, where you are right now. One of the things I see a lot of people doing, and I did for years myself, is I was very, very busy at getting things done, but I was very unproductive. I spent a lot of time and energy running in circles at base camp. I didn't have a vision, so the goals I set for myself were horizontal moves back and forth. I was literally just making circles. I was achieving things, but were the things I was achieving sending me in any direction? Absolutely not. I worked at a community bank for years. Why? I don't know. It's what I was just told that was the thing to do. Go get a job for a big conglomerate. And I literally spent years doing something that spun me around a base camp. It didn't push me off into the direction that I needed to go. Now, I think that time in was helpful. It helped me learn a lot. It helped me become a better coach, because I saw a lot of good and bad things that I didn't want in my life. But I could have spent those years more intentional. I could have spent those years more focused if I would have understood my vision and I planned a little better.
Well, and sometimes to that point, we just need to have time in to really understand what the vision is. So if you're lost and you don't feel like you have a vision quite yet, it might just be that you're still in an information gathering phase of life where you're taking in data right now that will eventually come together, shed some light on where you're really meant to be headed. I don't feel like I truly knew my purpose until about 2 years ago.
I totally agree. Same here.
And at that point, it became crystal clear. But leading up to that point, I was getting a little bit closer and a little bit closer with every job I took. There were elements that now I can see in hindsight. I was actually practicing for where I'm at today. I was actually acquiring some skills to help me with what I'm doing today. But it took a long time for me to really take all of those experiences and braid them together into this beautiful braid of my vision now that has been woven, purposefully or haphazardly in my case, It was very haphazardly woven together, but now it makes perfect sense. So you just may be in the middle of it right now. If you don't feel like you have a crystal clear view of what that vision looks like at the moment, just give yourself some time and spend some more time introspecting on where you've been, where you're at right now, and where you might want to go. Let your imagination take over. I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to planning is we don't even know half the time what we're planning for. And so getting clarity on that is step numero uno. And then from there, we can say, okay, if this is where we're trying to go, let's take a step back and say, okay, what's our fastest route to get there? And then what are the steps we need to take on a regular basis to help us achieve that? So in our next conversation, we're going to talk about time management strategies. So we had to build a case today for why planning matters. And now that you're bought in, just hang on tight for the next episode and we'll revisit this conversation in more depth.
Thanks for listening to Redefining Resilience.
To learn more about building your mental and physical readiness, check out odysseyresilience.org.
And follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok.